How to cure overthinking so fast it feels illegal. There's my hook. Now, by the end of this video, you'll have transformed from someone who is overthinking, thinks they're a bit of an idiot, to someone who is still an overthinker, but who is a bit more confident and knows how to master their potential. First thing I want to say is that overthinkers think that they are broken. They perceive overthinking as a bad thing. They do, at least I used to think I was stupid. They think they're awkward, and that's it. There's some flaws to these beliefs, because your potential is possibly higher than those of extroverted, non-awkward, non-overthinking people. How is that though? How is your potential higher? Well, you have the potential to become more intelligent than non-overthinkers. And you do that by starting a blog. Yes, I'm serious. Starting a blog. Again, this is going from overthinking to a bit more confident and a bit more outgoing. If you just have a habit of, writing down your thoughts under a title, how to stop overthinking, and just trying to write a blog post about it, whether, you do some research, you write down as much as before you do research, so you're actually using your brain. I usually recommend doing a brain dump, trying not to think about it, which I know is difficult for you, for me as well. But you just kind of start typing, or you just keep hitting keys, or on your phone, you'll start just hitting buttons and typing random words like drink bottle of water. And eventually you'll start to kind of come up with some real answers to the, how to stop overthinking, or whatever title you've put on. And you can do this on Notion, or I use Cortex, Kortex, or you can use just a Google Doc if you want. And just writing a blog post basically about it. And so the reason that this is good in general, I'm going to tell you why this is good for a lot of people and why this is especially good for you. So let's start with why blog posts are really good for anybody who wants to become more intelligent and more confident, okay? So there's something called the protege effect. And if you look at a lot of study techniques online that are very effective, you'll find that learning by teaching is a very common thing. If you look up the Feynman technique, if you look up retrieval, whether it's flashcards or just verbal retrieval, which is you remember something and you're trying to just explain it off the cuff. And also there's some method called PQ4R. And all of these methods actually use similar concepts of learning by teaching. Now, how is this relevant to you becoming more confident, outgoing, overthinking less? How does this relate? So I started writing blog posts basically just about how-to articles. I did how-to, and then I would put a problem down that I was trying to overcome, that I was struggling with, right? Anxiety, things like that. And it essentially meant that I had to use my brain and prior knowledge and brain dump. So I was kind of getting used to, I think the main benefit for me was getting words out of my head. It's actually emptying my head and almost feeling less overwhelmed, because I was getting all of this stuff out onto the page, or into the screen, onto the document on my computer or whatever, right? And so that actually already helped me a little bit, just brain dumping in itself. Because even before that, I used to do journaling just to try and get everything out of my head. Obviously, you still overthink. You're going to find more things to overthink about, but it does help. Now, when you're writing a blog post, for me, I benefited because I had to come up with examples because I was posting these blogs on Squarespace. So I was actually putting them out in the world, right? And so I'm okay, well, if someone reads this, I want them to understand it. So I'm going to put examples and stuff. I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to make sure it's very easy and concise to comprehend. I did research. And so all of this actually led to me making something that I found really helpful. So I actually almost wrote this incredible article that I followed. And so I would actually follow my own articles in real life. I would go talk to more people when I bought, groceries or bought something from the store. I would try and maybe ask, how are you? And talk a bit more to the person at the register, just as a bit of practice to try and get more social. And that was sort of solutions that I came up with myself by doing blog post writing, right? And by the way, I know this is a little bit strange, but I do need you to take this seriously because, look, just everything on this channel is very long-term based. If you're looking for ways to very quickly stop overthinking, look, I could be wrong, but for a lot of you, you're really looking in the wrong place, and you really need to reconsider your methods, because overthinking for a lot of people is a very long-term, constant part of their life and identity. And so if you're relying on quick tips and hacks, I'm sorry, but I think you're going to have a lot of trouble, and I think you're going to endure some suffering for significantly longer than you need to. In fact, if you want to learn more about becoming less awkward, a bit more confident, and a bit more outgoing as sort of an introvert, and have some real kind of self-confidence, I do have a course down below which kind of gives you all step-by-step detail, right? And the thing is with writing these blog posts as well, in achieving these things, is that you're able to move on to the next topic. So, psychologists say that you actually need to try and replace your thoughts instead of stop the overthinking. And this achieves that, because when you finish writing that blog post on that problem, you've already cleared your head a little bit, as I explained earlier, but you get to move on to a different blog post topic. And so there's less ruminating. You're actually getting used to just moving on and moving on and moving on. So yeah, as per psychologists, what I'm saying is valid. And also, even day to day, you'll overthink about lots of little things. With blog post writing, I know this is a little bit out the side of the scope of this video, but on other videos, I do talk about purpose. So finding your purpose, learning kind of who you want to be. I was writing my blog post based on problems I wanted to overcome. And I thought that, hey, if I overcome these specific problems, I think I can become the man that I really want to be. At the end of my life. So I had to do a lot of self-reflection to kind of discover who that man was. And so that actually gave me a foundation as to what kind of blog posts to write, what problems to write about, what problems to solve. And so when I started living day to day, I was overthinking about things that helped write my blog post. And that happened naturally. So if I was writing how to overcome overthinking, I started noticing, what people were doing, and my brain would come up with lessons to help solve the problem of how to stop overthinking. And so this is really good. So this is less random thoughts and more intentional thoughts, and thoughts that are aligned ultimately with the blog post, which means they're ultimately aligned with your purpose and who you want to be. If you do choose to incorporate that, which if you want to learn more about that, you're going to have to just watch another video of mine, my last one. All right, so now, just like I kind of mentioned a moment ago, that psychologists say they you should replace your overthinking thoughts and not try and stop them. I do want to say that, so stopping or fixing overthinking is not, and even curing, like I put in the title, is not the reality. It's not the reality. So what you want to do is you want to try and, I guess, use overthinking to your advantage with these blog posts, and you'll find that it actually helps you understand the world a bit more, because you'll kind of notice things that other people don't notice, and that'll help you create these really quite intellectual blog posts. And that's what I mean by you can be more intelligent than extroverts, because you can overanalyze. You can kind of notice patterns better than a lot of other people can. And that can be really powerful when it's actually channeled into something that's intentional and purposeful, like a blog post, right? But so same in the moment, you don't want to stop your overthinking. You want to identify it. So if you just say, there's the overthinking story again. I've heard it a million times before. And just kind of say that out loud or to yourself in your head. Every time you really are overthinking quite a lot out during the day. This is probably the only short-term trick I would give overthinking. And the reason that this is important is because when you start to observe your thoughts and not try and push them away, you gain more control, because it's almost like the goal isn't to stop what's inevitable, overthinking. The goal is to just have more authority over your emotions than your mind does, because you are not your mind. You can have all these negative thoughts, but be happy. That's what I found a couple of years ago. I'm having negative thoughts, but now I'm just observing them and allowing them to be there. And I'm like writing my blog posts and I'm enjoying myself. I'm actually happy. This is weird. So I'm happy, but my thoughts are negative. That's really weird. And it was just because that's just how it is. So you just kind of learn to observe those thoughts, you let them pass by like clouds. And this is what psychologists will say to you as well. This is actually almost the fundamentals of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Yeah. So that point is very important. I do want you to take that a little bit seriously. In fact, if you want to look a bit more into even CBT online, learn a bit more about it, learn a bit more about, observing the thoughts and letting them pass. Definitely a really big thing. It was one of the first things I learned in my journey overcoming social anxiety and OCD and overthinking. And it's, to this day, definitely one of the biggest, definitely one of the most important things. And it's easy to forget as well. Hey, like, don't latch onto the thoughts. They don't need to be real. Just allow them to pass. You're okay. Relax. And then you're like, okay, so I have authority. I don't need to feel the way that my thoughts tell me I need to feel. And my thoughts aren't necessarily representative of reality. They're just stories. Now, I want to quickly touch on, if you're overthinking, you want to be a bit more confident, outgoing, right? That's going to be harder if you're thinking about the future. So I want to say that if you do struggle with, thinking about the future a lot and, doing that, I would say in the moment that you're thinking about the future, ask yourself yes or no. And maybe this is after you identify the thought. You can ask yourself, yes or no, am I behaving and doing as my highest self would? So for example, I've spoken a little bit about, try and find your purpose and try and identify who you want to be. And it's almost like, yes or no, in this moment, am I being that man in some way? Am I trying to remain calm? Yes, okay, so I value calmness. All right, well, my best Riley, he values calmness, so yeah, okay, I'm doing a good job there trying to remain calm. That's what he would do, okay? And, okay, standing up straight, I don't know, I can't think of another example, but you get it. Yes or no, am I being that person? If yes, then you're okay. You're fine. You're doing the right thing because you're doing as your highest self would, okay? So that means there's no need to think about the future, because that person, as long as you're being that person now, then your future is covered, because that's the future you want. There's no need to think. I know you're saying, but I'm talking, Riley, about practicality. I need to stop something happening in the future. Look, to that, I would say there's always going to be something to think about in the future. And so just think about it. If you are being the kind of person regularly, because that's what you're doing, you're choosing to be the kind of person who worries about the future. If that's your habit, then you're going to suffer for the rest of your life, because there's always going to be something to worry about. And so that's going to be a mindful practice for you to just let go. Just say, things might be fucked, but I'm just going to try my best. Even use the blog post writing brain dumping to solve that problem. So write about how to deal with this discussion I'm going to have with my mum in the future, or like how to deal with a tense discussion with your mum that's coming up, and then brain dump about it. And you'll often feel better because you'll have brain dumped everything and your head is clear and you kind of have clarity, and now the problem is gone just automatically without even needing to write a whole blog post or without needing to do anything. But you also might have written down an answer, so you can look at what you've put down on your doc, on your Google Doc, or whatever it was, and say, okay, all right, yeah, this is actually good. This is actually a solution. I don't know how this came out of my mind, but here we are. There we go. And there's your solution. But there are definitely times where it actually isn't about brain dumping, and it's just, you just need to let go and just focus on what you can do now. In this moment, yes or no, am I being that man? I am? Okay, just fucking don't worry. I know it's hard, but this shit is like what will actually get you to a happy, confident person in the future who isn't suffering from overthinking. You'll still overthink, totally. But like, for example, now that I've gone on this journey and the blog posts and all that, my mind's just generally more clear, and I'm very intentional with my actions because I know who I want to be and I know what blog posts I'm writing at the time, so I'm always kind of thinking about that. And yeah, I don't think about random shit anymore. And in this thing as well, if you ever find yourself asking, what should I do? Ask yourself, who do I want to be? That's how you know what step to take next and what to do in the moment. Should can be damaging because you start judging yourself and saying you should have done things differently. So again, this is how you're going to be transferring yourself from awkward and introverted and overthinking to someone who's a bit more outgoing, a little bit more confident in themselves, a little bit more calm, all that. So again, I've got a course down below with step-by-step detail on basically going from making that transformation and even becoming someone who's got a lot of kind of self-faith, self-trust, self-confidence, and even more intelligence. So go check that out and have a good one.